All right, as you can see, the southeast Louisiana coast is incredibly vast. All of these marshes were built over the centuries by the Mississippi River, and every port is loaded with nooks and crannies and cuts and marshes and ponds and bayous. Sometimes it's kind of an embarrassment of riches. You've just got so many options that it's difficult to select a place to fish. Now, the good news is there's always something biting somewhere. Doesn't mean you can always find them, but they're always out there. So what you want to do before you ever go fishing is put the odds in your favor as much as possible. And a big tool for me doing that are the buoys that are scattered across the entire coast. Here's one that I look at a whole lot for an area that I fish a good bit, close to my house. And earlier in the week, I had visions of today going out to target topwater fish. But looking at this buoy, I'm almost 100% positive that will not happen today. As you can see, yesterday, we had a front come through. The tide kind of meandered back and forth, didn't do a whole lot throughout the day, moved less than a half a foot. And then that wind really started blowing out of the north, and it just dumped water out of the marsh. You can see it just drained. So it bottomed out sometime this morning. This right here, this line indicates midnight. So I'm going to say maybe 8 o'clock or so. Right now it's 9 a.m. So the tide bottomed out and it started to rise. Now, as you can tell, we've lost, since yesterday, let's see, at the peak of the high, it was almost 2 feet. And at the bottom of the low, the water's got only a half foot of elevation. So we lost 1.5 feet of water overnight. That tells me a few things. Number one, the water's probably going to be dirty in the lakes that I would target topwater trout in. So that's probably not going to work. Not only that, the flats are going to be really low. Those fish are just not going to be pushed up. Also, the water temperature fell 3 degrees. So those fish are just not going to be inclined to feed on top. Now, this low water does help in some regard. It concentrates redfish and bass in bayous. So that's probably what I'm going to do today. Try and fish the bayous for some redfish and bass. Now, I'm getting a late start on purpose because of the cold temps we had last night. Got down to 37 degrees. All right, so hopefully that helps you to understand some of my mindset that I have before I go fishing. Now we get to get on the water and see what's out there in real terms. My suspicions may not be proven true, but I think they will be. All right, I'm normally a big believer in riding around until you find water you like. Unfortunately, I've covered a ton of water looking for pretty water, and I've failed. Every bayou I've gone to has had dirty water, a result of that big blow yesterday, and so I'm just gonna have to fish dirty water. Just all there is to it. I'm starting now with a black and blue matrix craw, a really good bait for dirty water. Now, I'll tell you, no bait in this marsh is as good in dirty water as any bait in clean water. Dirty water kills you more than anything. Except maybe no tide movement. Maybe that's worse. But man, I don't like fishing dirty water at all. I'd say it's probably got about 4 inches of visibility, which I know in some places means it's clean. But in this marsh, that's dirty. We've also got a bit of a breeze blowing. It's out of the northeast at about 10, I guess. Forecast says it's going to lay down as the day goes on, and I hope that happens. Water temp back in the marsh where we are is 56, 57. That's a big change from where it was last week. We had several days of warm weather in a row, and the water temp got up to 70 degrees. Now, the tide is rising, just as that buoy showed us, and it's actually, the water's not low at all. I'd say it's about average. If this wind lays down, this high sun will hopefully work its magic on the flats. If we can find some 60-degree water temps, I think we could quite possibly catch some topwater trout. No time soon. That would be toward the end of the day. Ooh, there's a fish. There he is. What are you? Little Red. He destroyed that matrix craw. Boy, did he smash it. He was definitely fun to fight. Unfortunately, he's not big enough to keep. Look how white he is. That tells you how dirty that water is.
So long, buddy.
This episode of Marsh Man Masson brought to you by Puglia Sporting Goods.
And one of the great things about these matrix craws is that they're scented. So I don't know if that fish saw the bait or smelled it, but in dirty water like this, that scent definitely helps you get more bites. All right, so we got a rising tide pushing between these 2 points, which makes this a very intriguing area to fish. So I'm gonna bomb cast it a little bit. All right, that didn't produce. That's a bad omen for this entire area. So that tells me I probably need to make a big move. I need to go find some better water. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm on the hunt. First for clean water, then hopefully for fish. All right, good news, bad news. The bad news is our big move doesn't seem to have paid off. Water's just as dirty here, if not a little worse. Good news is it appears our wind is starting to die. Still blowing, but not as hard as it was. I'm gonna fish this little bayou just to see if I can get any fish, but I still want to find some better water. Right now I'm sticking with this black and blue matrix craw. There's a fish. Oh, it's a bass. It's a nice bass. All right, that's a really nice bass. Good fish for the marsh. I will take him, particularly in a day like today, with not the best conditions. Ooh, good hit. Oh yeah, that's a bass. Oh man, good fish. All right. He thumped it. That's a good sign. Glad we came into this bayou. All right, so look at this. Look what happened. Fortunately, I saw this. My son tied an FG knot for me. You know, I'm a big believer in fishing a leader on braided line, but I tie a double uni knot. Now, there's a big disadvantage to a double uni in that it doesn't go through rod guides well. The FG knot goes through rod guides really well. Now, I've tied several FG knots on my own, and I've had 2 of them fail. My son tied this one for me, and it just failed. Now, I saw it failing. I saw it coming unraveled, and so I pulled it and it came apart. But I actually fished this setup all day during a tournament Saturday. I caught 2 3-pound fish on this setup. Fortunately, it didn't break then. It only broke today. I think I'm gonna tie on a double uni. All right, double uni it is. I know this isn't gonna fail, he says, crossing his fingers. Fortunately, it didn't fail on a fish. I might have had to go home and slap Joel.
This episode of Marsh Man Masson brought to you by Matrix Shad, and by Fitzgerald Fishing, and by Cito New Orleans, and by Magnolia Vodka, and by Death Grip Jig Heads.
Is that a fish? Nope. So I take back what I said about the wind dying. It's still blowing. 10 or 12, I'd say. Keep getting hints that it's going to die before the end of the day, but we'll see. Come on, redfish, gingerfish. Oh, that's a fish. Liar. Oh, look at that. I think that was a brim, but it could have been a small red. There's a fish. There's one. Feels like another bass. And it's not. It's a red. Another throwback red. He might be 16, but I don't think. I think he's about 15. He thumped it, that's for sure. He definitely wanted this bait. Yeah, a little bit over 15. We're gonna let him go. There's a fish. What are you? Oh, nice bass. Good bass. That's a really nice marsh bass. A 2-pound fish or so. Almost in the exact same spot that little red was in. All right, putting a little collection of fish together. Not so bad. It's amazing how often those bass and reds are stacked together in the same spots. You would think they would segregate according to species, and I'm sure sometimes they do, but I guess in areas that are funneling the bait to them, they're just both attracted to those types of places. There's a fish. Probably another red. He hasn't come up. He's not big, I know that. Oh, he's a bass. All right. That was a good thump. I tell you, these fish are really solid. Really, really nice marsh bass. That's a chunky fish. Boy, is he chunky. There's a fish. There he is. Oh, another nice bass. Good night. That's a nice bass. Look at this pig. Look at this pig. Oh, goodness. That is a giant marsh bass. That's at least a 3-pounder. Man, is he fat. I'd love to have him in a tournament. Oh, goodness. I will not keep this fish. There's no way. Bye, big fatty. I've caught all these fish sitting in this one little spot, and in all honesty, it doesn't look that good to me. I guess what's going on is this tide is coming this way, and it's hitting against this kind of wall of marsh right here. There's a trenasse right over here draining this little pond on a falling tide, but we've got a rising tide right now, so the water's pushing up in there. This is not a spot where I'd look and say, okay, this should definitely have fish here, but it just does. It kind of illustrates the importance of fishing thoroughly any spot where you get a bite. I caught that one fish here, spot locked the motor, and made several more casts, and I've gotten a bite on a bunch of those casts. Now it does seem like it's probably petered out by now. All right, let's move on. I think we fished this out. Good productive little spot though. Oh, there's a fish. Didn't move much. Oh, lost him. It was a nice bass. Kudos to him for throwing that hook, because I had him hooked up. He was nowhere near as big as the last one. Ooh, there's a fish. That's a... Oh, I was going to say that's a red because it was in the middle of that bayou, but it's actually a bass. So far, I've guessed wrong on every fish that I've hooked. I was wrong on this one too. He was in the middle of the bayou. Pretty little fish. Certainly not as big as the last, but not bad at all. I tell you, just such a great feeling when that fish hits, you reel in your slack, and you set the hook and your rod bows up. That's why I fish. That's why I get out of bed early. That's why I think about this all day, every day. It's just nothing like it. Well, I ain't the biggest fish of the day. That's what's been stealing my claws on some of these baits. There he is. Another bass. I stopped guessing. I didn't know what he was, although he erupted pretty quickly to reveal himself. And that's one I like to take home. That's about a 3/4 pound fish. If you've watched this channel enough, you know these marsh bass don't get big. Still, I get chided for keeping bass. That's fine with me. And I understand people's objection, but I have no objection to keeping a few of these to take home and eat at all. You're not hurting anything at all. I will relish the opportunity to eat him. See what I did there? Relish. I gotta tell you, I'm stunned with how many fish we've caught in this little bayou with how this water looks. I really think we picked the right bait for the day, for the conditions of this day. And that's not to say some other bait wouldn't have caught them, but you know, you can only fish one bait at a time, so you really don't know. And I don't want to fish something else right now because I feel like I'm having good success with this. Oh, what are you? You feel redfish like. And of course, you're a bass. That's a big bass. Goodness. Oh my goodness. Why couldn't there be a tournament today? 5 of these would win you a tournament for sure. Just so fat. Such a fat fish. I'm not gonna keep him for sure. Man, I love these fish. All right, dude. Bite for me next week. So I'm so biased toward fishing these marshes on a falling tide. It's nice to have some success on a rise, just to confirm, you know, yeah, it can happen. And one of the really big advantages of fishing all throughout this marsh system on a rising tide is that you don't have to worry as much about getting stuck. I mean, you might get stuck, but you know that water's coming up, and sooner or later you'll be able to float out. You always kind of have it in the back of your mind when the water's falling and you push way back in the marsh. Am I gonna be able to get out of here? And that's why I would never fish without my Sea-Tow membership. Just gives you such peace of mind. I mean, you still worry about it. Obviously, you don't want to have to be towed, but it's nice to know you can be if you need it. There's one. Another bass. This is a bass slaughter today. Unexpected, but I will take it. Man, something happened to him. Good night. What happened to you, buddy? Looks like you're a leper. There's a fish. Another bass. Oh, man, is that a big one? Another giant. Look at him jump. He's gonna get let go. He's too big. Come on, dude. Bring the whole marsh with you. Wow. Very good day. Very good day. Yeah, you're too big, buddy. I'm gonna let you go. Thanks for the fight. See you on the flip side. There he is. Another big one. Man. Oh, goodness. Oh, stay out the marsh. Where are you going? Yep, another big one. Oh, man, even bigger than the last. That might be the biggest fish of the day. Settle down, boy. Man, it's the thing with these marsh bass. I mean, look at the size of his mouth relative to his body. The bass we catch on the river near our house, exact opposite. Big mouths, little bodies. Man, these fish, he's got a bloody tail. It's on the top. Not sure that means a spawn or not, but it looks like a big female with a bunch of eggs in there. We're gonna let her go get back on her bed. That's where she was. This fish is very, very heavy. I'm telling you, that fish is 3.5 pounds, I bet. It's a very heavy fish. There's a fish. Another bass. Oh, look, he stuck in the back of the boat. Look what this guy did. He's still on. Come on this way, dude. Get in the boat. There you go. Welcome aboard. You can play around like that when you're catching them like I am today. All right, so I'm sitting here pondering my next move, enjoying a little roach poison. As well as these bass are biting today, I could definitely push back into the marsh and go find other areas that are producing fish. No question about it. Feel very confident in that regard. But the air temperature has really warmed up a lot. I'm getting very uncomfortable in this coat. And I feel like we might be far enough along in this tide that the shallow flats could be nice and warm, or at least relatively warm, and those speckled trout may have pushed up onto them. That's kind of how I'm leaning, although I may change as I'm pulling out of here and see some different conditions perhaps. But I'm still mad at those trout for not biting topwater last week, and today's conditions certainly not perfect for that, but they're getting more and more that way. I don't know. Next time you see me, I will have made up my mind. All right, so I decided to go the topwater route. Not a big surprise. And as you can see, our wind has died. It is, look at this cove. I mean, it is just beautiful. Sheet of glass. Now, I mean, that's not perfect for topwater fishing. You do want a little bit of a ripple, but I'll take this over a gale, that's for sure. Now, water clarity is not the best. It's really brown. It's stained, but it does have some degree of clarity. I'll put it that way. I'm gonna turn this trolling motor on high and just try and cover some water. So far, no bait. I don't see any bait at all. But we'll cover some water and see. Oh, I saw a little bit of bait. Looked like it could have been a pogie. It wasn't a mullet. I'll keep my eyes peeled, that's for sure. Oh, you know what? I forgot to check water temperature. Doesn't really matter because I'm already committed to this. So either it happens or it doesn't. But I'm gonna check the water temp. All right, it's 60 degrees even in this cove. I'd prefer it a couple of degrees warmer, but I will take 60, that's for sure. All right, I am seeing some bait in this cove. I don't think it's mullet. It's just kind of barely breaking the surface, but it's not clearing it. And the only reason I'm seeing it is because the surface is so calm. Oh, there was a mullet. First mullet I've seen in 3 trips at least. All right, so the wind is blowing again, and unfortunately, it's completely changed directions. Blowing into this cove now. It's not strong enough to mess us up too badly, but I'm having to troll against it, which isn't ideal. Keeping a big belly in my line, making my bait much harder to work. All right, I haven't seen enough bait to keep me interested, and this wind switch really kind of messed me up. So I'm gonna move from this cove, go try and find a protected shoreline that has some bait. The hunt continues. All right, the water in this cove is not as good as what we left. So I'm starting to really not like our chances, but you gotta at least give it a try. Just have to. All right, so far this year, the topwater fish are eluding me like the girls in high school. It's just not working out. Now, you never know when you're throwing these baits. Is it the particular bait you're throwing, or are there just no trout around? My go-to is always a she-dog, but there are definitely times where that she-dog is just too obnoxious. And with this water temperature being down, today may be one of those days. I may want to try something more subtle, like a matrix mullet. In fact, I think I'll do that for my next pass. And then after that, if they don't cooperate, I'm just gonna call it a day. But I'm not giving up on these things, I'll tell you that. They're gonna bite at some point. All right, last cast. Then I'm gonna try a different drift line with a different bait. All right, I switched over to a matrix mullet, far less obnoxious bait. There have definitely been times where this bait outproduced the she-dog for me. Hopefully today is one of those. I have found a pocket of really, really nice water. It's very pretty right here. Man, my wife and I have been watching this show on Netflix called You, Y-O-U. Any of y'all seen it? It's about this creepy stalker dude who ends up getting this girl to fall in love with him after he researches everything about her on the internet. Kind of makes you think about all the stuff we put online that's so readily available. It's a good show, mostly well written. Got a few corny little parts to it, but mostly it's pretty good. I guess that's kind of apropos of nothing. I was just kind of thinking about it while I'm sitting out here watching this topwater bait go back and forth with nothing sniffing it. So apparently a nuclear bomb just went off. I don't really know what that is. Some type of explosion. Hopefully nobody's hurt. Well, definitely kind of a mixed bag today. I mean, the bass fishing was just crazy. Really, really good. The topwater trout fishing though, not so much. I'm certainly disappointed. I would have loved to have caught them, but I'm not surprised. Conditions just weren't perfect. That water temp was still a little bit too low. It's supposed to warm up over the next few days, so I'll be at it again trying to get these fish to bite topwater baits, or at least trying to find fish that are biting topwater baits. But I'm certainly not going home with my tail between my legs. Today was an absolute blast. Well, if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. Also, subscribe to the Marsh Man Masson channel on YouTube, and leave a comment in the comment section. Let us know how your fishing's been lately. And don't forget to click the notification bell so you'll be notified whenever we post. And until next time, if we don't see you in this beautiful marsh, we'll see you right here on Marsh Man Masson.